Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, we have an interesting guest with us. His name is Gion, and he's building a platform that allows us to socialize differently in a new AI age. Very exciting to have you here, Gino.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting. Thank you.
All right. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and start with explaining what this platform that you're trying to build is and how it differentiates from what we have today?
Right. Actually, currently we are right in the middle of AI explosion, as we all know it. I mean, it's no surprise. We have seen it for like 2, 3 years now. And in 24, right after elections in the US, there was a massive surge in social media unrest. And that was not just political, it was also from a creator standpoint, where creators were finding it really tough to monetize, having trouble making sure that they reach the audience they want to reach. That's when we realized there was an opening in the near future where social as we know it will change. And we started building towards it. It has taken multiple shapes over the last few months. But what we are trying to build is a new way of socializing digitally. We are right now in an age where you're not just facing humans on the social platforms. You're also facing bots. You're also facing AI enabled scripts. You're looking at a huge amount of infrastructure that is deployed to manipulate people. How do you safeguard yourself as a normal user? Uh, there's very little that you can do. The only way you can do it is with AI that helps you in not just your social presence, your social graph online, but also with creating tools uh, to safeguard your interest online, to create more avenues so that you can have better interaction with the future age and future AI that is going to infiltrate all our social spaces. So we're building a social tech platform, as we are calling it. Um, it's a merger of social and tech, a departure from social media, as we know.
I think you bring up a very good point, right? Today, when you log into social media, any one of them, you clearly don't know if you're interacting with just humans, bots, or scripts, or especially in this age of AI where everybody can have a bot of their own that creates content. I think we are at a point where majority of the content created today is probably created by bots, and it gets really hard for people to differentiate between what is a bot versus what's a human that I'm connecting with. Not necessarily it's bad, but it's not knowing is definitely bad, right? You can be interacting with bots if they're helpful, but not knowing that it's a bot versus it's a human, like that's I think is a big problem. If you don't mind going into a bit more details of like how you were trying to differentiate that and like what how do you see this differing from a user experience standpoint um, to what we have in traditional social media today?
Right. There are a few avenues where you can, dramatically see a difference, departure from what we have. So one of the ways we are doing it is making communities as a center point of it. So what we are trying to do with that is we have realized that there is a lot less likelihood of malicious activity or someone trying to manipulate a group as opposed to individual. An individual, for whatever reasons, for lack of initiation or for lack of, technical know-how, might not be as averse with, the kind of situations that they might face online. But a group would be. There would be people who might be moderators. There might be people who are, technically adept, and so on. So making community as a central pieces of a platform like this is important, and that's what we have done. We have created community, which is going to be a focal point of not just interactions, but any of your creations on our platform. So you can use AI to build micro apps. So the kind of apps that you might, start building on long ago and many other platforms at the beginning, and before you start to, incorporate infrastructure to it. Uh, so those kind of applications, those kind of dashboards. So if you're into sports, you might have a, sports data for your weekend football games, for example. So those kind of technology we want to integrate, and that's one avenue where you can immediately see uh, that difference. So one example would be Reddit. The reason Reddit, moved from what it was to what it is right now is purely because of moderation, purely because of groups and communities that vouched for those communities, looked after them, and catered to those communities, and built it organically, slowly. So that's one of the ways. The second way is, and the second avenue rather is to have AI that will help you to go out and represent you as a human. So right now, what's happening is, um, if you are on any of the social platforms, the best you can do is run scripts. You can use the likes of Cloud Code or any other, and you can have scripts that are, going through all your feeds, making sure which ones you want to interact with, and then you have to go and manually, do whatever it takes to maybe like, or whatever you want to do with that. But in the near future, what you will see increasing amounts of AI deployment by individuals. So if you look at people who are resourceful, they will have multiple AIs that are going out. Say for example, if you're a creator, you'll have an AI that is going out and fetching information and doing research on what you are trying to build. You might have another AI that is going out to find the kind of people that you want to be part of what we are trying to build a community. And then another area that is, actively building technology for you, which is safeguarding your interest by cybersecurity and making sure your infrastructure is right to mark, and maybe also building technology, which makes money. So it could be micro apps, it could be marketplaces where you can sell your services and products. So these are a couple of ways where we are changing the dynamic of the social presence that you have. So if you want to have a visualization of what it would look like, it's more like a community-based social platform where you have an AI that will help you build that community in whichever form you want. So in practice, you might see coming into Gion, as we are calling it, you will come into Gion and see different communities that you can be part of. Some owned by famous people, some owned by not so famous people, might be your friends or family. Uh, and you can join them, and those will have very inherent niche uh, interests. So, and within those interests, you will see a category of applications and category of technology that are required for those communities. And that's where the game changes, because now you're not in a massive room where you have billions of people, and what you get to see is necessarily determined by the algorithm. And algorithm is supreme. So even if you're on X or Instagram, you don't have the guarantee that you will be shown the content that you subscribe to, that you can subscribe. Those are not the content you are necessarily going to see. You will see a majority of them for sure, so that you don't open up your profile and see, oh, okay, I didn't subscribe to any of these. But you have majority of it, but then there is added content, there is advertisement, and there's many more things that you know, may not be necessary into. You will see all of those moving on. And then you will see those replaced by technology that you can actively engage with.
Yeah, no, I think you touched on a lot of things. So let me see if I can try to go a bit deep into like each one of them and see if we can unpack some of those details. I think one of the things you mentioned is about Reddit. I know me, I personally do it too. Sometimes I search for things, I want recommendations, and then I intentionally put Reddit in my search because I want to see what real people are talking about, not bot generated comments or artificially bought reviews and this and that, right? So the Reddit kind of gives you that at some level, it is able to keep that authenticity of, yeah, if it is on Reddit, I have at least a level of confidence that it is coming from real users, real people. I think that's a great example. So what you're saying is that you're trying to bring that level of experience in your social platform as well, so that you know who you are interacting with in a broader scale.
Absolutely. I think to unpack it a little bit, it's a classic case of moderation. How do you moderate to, as Elon Musk would put it, to find maximum truth within a community, within a network. And the problem with that is humans are biased. Even if we are in a discussion and we are, being very true to ourselves, we'll still land on a spectrum where we might be biased on certain topics. And and to even it out, you need enough number of people so that you can even that spectrum and you come to a straight medium. And that's not easy to do. Reddit has historically been able to do that because they had an engine where you made sure that there are moderators and there are community rules and you adhere to those rules. And, and it didn't start up well. If you remember, Reddit was you had people who were moderators who were very powerful and you had people who would come in and say, hey, come on, this is a community for so and so, but the moderator is not letting me do so and so thing. But that has changed because you have enough number of people on the platform that will come together and say, okay, this has come to a sweet medium where you can, if you're getting into a technology-based Reddit thread, you realize, okay, you're more than confident that you'll see what you're looking for. A different version of this was, recently implemented by X.com, by Elon. And that's a different perspective where you have a mixture of AI and community nodes, where you can, with someone graph, which will go out and search the internet and see if, it's actually correct, which, is in my thought, doing the work of a lot of people, like analysts who's looking at every tweet. Sorry, rather, maybe not calling it tweet now. But at every tweet, and you can have people who are looking at different kinds of dialogue and sum it up. So that's power to the user. That's power to truth. And then there are community notes where you can have an expert come in and flag everything, saying, "Hey, this is not how it is. This is what it is." That's, I would say, a problem of moderation. We will see AI getting more better at, increasingly better at it throughout, most likely this year and up and above. I think what you'll see is AI taking a majority of place where it will be like 90-95% or even 100%, true to what is happening, the context of the, dialogue happening, and would be able to give you context of the entire, you know, genre of discussion. And that's what we are trying to do too. We are also, I mean, that's the best implementation I've seen yet. Until something else comes up or we invent something. Uh, we want to have an AI that'll, go out and search for facts, come back. And if you are summoning AI, it'll help you internal moderator. I mean, we're calling it moderator or moderating engine. It'll go out and search for what is true, compare it with the rules of the community because, you always need rules. And then from there, it'll give you a certain perspective of whether this what a post or discussion is worth having or not. Or even if it's worth having for entertainment, is it true or not? I mean, there is always value for, discussion which is entertaining might not be necessarily true, but, who cares? So if you're getting entertainment, that's all you need. So that's one of the areas where,
Yeah, no, I think it's a great example, right? Like, I mean, as you mentioned, human bias always going to exist. I I do also think that as we build AI, that bias can seep in to the tools that we build as well. It's very important for us to intentionally make sure we're not doing it, do our best. I think you can see it today when you interact with ChatGPT versus Gemini versus um, Grok. They all have a personality of their own, and you can see it kind of matches to the people that are creating it, the personality of the product or the AI that you're building. You can see that, especially on, at least for me, especially on Grok, you can clearly see the personality of Grok and like directly associate that with, yeah, I can see that this is built by Elon's team. Right. So I think it's important to make sure that, we, especially for moderation purposes, making sure that it's not biased. But another thing that you mentioned that's very interesting for me is like you're not trying to um, build a media platform. You seems like you're trying to build a platform for people not only to interact with each other, but also be able to build products and things that they think are important for that community, and let other people use it. Um, as I'm saying this, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like in old days, where communities are always close knit. They all have common purpose. Everybody has their own everybody has a skill, and it's kind of this barter system that they used to follow, right? It's like, can you elaborate a little bit on the platform aspect of what you're trying to build?
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely correct. There are two facets to it. So one is when you mentioned that, whatever AI you are building will have some flavor of you in it. It's inevitable. It's kind of, if you're a creator, you can only create from what you are, or the position that you have. And if you are doing that, and if you are being true to yourself, you will in in effect create something which replicates yourself. So that's inevitable. And you can see you're right when you go on Grok. You'll see the very finer details of what Grok is as compared to what it could be like if you're going on ChatGPT or Perplexity, or if you take up the Genshin Cloud uh, and Shopify. So there's very distinct differentiation. And our reality, at least our thesis and our belief, is the best way to come to a sweet medium for even AI systems is that everyone in the playing field start creating their own AI. And if you start creating your own AI with your own flavors and let it run into the world wide or whatever, you'll come to a sweet medium of that current situation, of that current time in history. And that is very important. And that is important for a couple of reasons. One, it is important for finding truth in the industry or finding truth in the world. Truth is a very fickle thing. It slips away, and the only way you can find it is to have the time in history as a marker, and from there, if you have people who are within that time come together and say and have a dialogue on what is happening, and then you find all of the participating parties, and that is important. And in doing that, I would argue that AI is a technology, is, is a technology that you want to deploy. And where can you deploy it? I mean, what are the use cases for an AI that you can have right now, not maybe 6 months or a year or a couple of years down the line. Of course, you need it, but that's a different situation. That's a different time frame. But right now, what can you use your AI if you had one? Uh, you can go out and it find the truth before the truth for you. You can train it to mirror or mimic your behavior online. It's easily doable, and and not just that, it can also create the kind of tech that you need to solve your problems. So you, as an individual, you have whatever needs. I mean, I'm into soccer. If I am into soccer, I need to be able to find and be on top of the different soccer tournaments happening all over the world, and I can train my AI to go out and make sure that that happens. Not just the games, but also the transfer market. If I'm that interested, which I am. So you want to be involved in that, and then you, of course, if I'm talking about myself, I take myself as an example. I want to know what's happening in the AI, as it happens, or not a couple of weeks or a month down the line, because one AI is moving so fast, it's very tough to make sure you are on top of it. But then also because you want to enable your psyche, which is again a neural net, to understand where the future markets will go. And that's important for me because I'm doing something in technology and in AI. It can be true for different people in different fashions. And what we realize is if you have an AI, the best form of deploying an AI and the best form of gathering information for an AI is not just through your personal requirements, although that's important. It's also to allow your AI to go out and communicate and be part of different communities that you are part of, and learn from it and understand what that community is about. So if I have an AI, it's only understanding a part of myself if it's just solving my problems, if it's not solving the problems of the communities that I am part of. So the soccer community, if I'm looking at technology. If that's not happening, it's very tough for an AI to understand the whole spectrum of what I am. And for that, I think you have to let the current technology build technology in a sense for you, for your community. And that's what we are trying to do. So when we say that, hey, you can have technology that you would rather, maybe pay, uh, you can say SaaS platforms for, you can have those, and you can also have different technology that are not available because there's not enough market for someone to build it for a particular niche, which is, maybe very few number of people in the world. But now you can. So we are trying to enable people. Uh, it's more of an enablement exercise uh, than a social media exercise. And that's why we are calling it a social tech platform rather than a social media, because it's not necessarily sharing um, imagery or video that you like or cat video that you like. It's more, maybe sharing applications the way you used to share videos or images. It's sharing, um, marketplaces that you have created because you thought, selling China on Facebook is not as efficient as it might be on, AI can go out and find people who are interested in China. That kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great. I mean, it's very interesting how the platform could evolve, right? Like having our own AI personality out there is necessarily not a. I mean, it is going to happen. It's like at some
Inevitable.
point in time, even if you want to do it or not, it will happen. As you can see, um, all the email replies are auto-typed today, right? Pretty much the email reply is ready for you to send. I see that also happening on, at least on the professional side. Teams can
Copilot.
respond to a bot. Like, I mean, of course, it's not responding, it's waiting for you to say yes, no, but it's there. Um, so
Tangible. Yeah.
but doing it intentionally, I think, kind of gives you that control over that, which I think is super important. I think we talked about what you're trying to build, but maybe let's take a step back a little bit. And uh, I know you kind of briefly gave an introduction on how this started, but can you explain, like, why are you trying to start a new company? What's your background? Where did you study and things like that?
Right. I mean, I come from India, from the southern part of India. It's a state called Kerala. I grew up in. I, I was fortunate to have schooling in different parts of India. I want to say so. I did my early schooling in Delhi. Moved out from there to Kerala to have my engineering degree, which was in automobile engineering, believe it or not. I'm a petrolhead by nature or by passion. Uh, so, and and during that engineering phase, I realized that there is opening, not just an opening, it's a wide spectrum of entrepreneurship that's going to happen. And at the time, um, there was a government program in my state where I studied, which allowed young people to create their companies, and they were incubated. So one of the first incubators in Canada, um, I think, in my third year of graduation. And we started a couple of companies. We got incubated in one of the first incubator called Startup Village. We were one of the first 40 companies to be there. And from there, I think I've never stopped being an entrepreneur. Even though I moved, I mean, the first two companies did not work out. We were way ahead of the time. One of them was live streaming startup. We were at the minimum 5, 6 years ahead of time. And in the army, in 2011, you can imagine live streaming. So this was not something which you would, but it did. Uh, we had really good backers. And then from there, what happened is I moved slowly into the business side of our startups, where I was more interested in how do you create markets where they are not. How do you infiltrate those markets? And that's what I was into for around 10, 12 years. Moved to States right after COVID. I've been consulting for around 4 years before I started Gion. The reason I started Gion was purely out of thought experiment that I had with one of my mentors at the time, Joshua. We were talking, and this was November, at the start of November, and we were talking about the state of social media because one of the projects was around enabling social media for one of the big tech. They wanted to make sure that they had resources deployed. And at the time, we were just talking about how AI would happen, how AI would change the landscape. And if you remember, that's around the time when DeepSeek happened. DeepSeek is a major milestone for AI, where you realize that hey, maybe we don't need that much amount of money to create something which is foundational. And that's where it sparked. So we realized that hey, social media is bound to change for the good, and AI is going to be a part of it. There's no questions about it. And not just that, you will, if you have the capacity to create code with AI, which we are seeing, after a year from 24 December to now 25 December with cloud code, and now in 26 you see that you can have increasingly reliable code being generated. We understood that these three things, critically three important three things, which is one is social, another is AI, and another is AI driven applications coming and merging together in the near future, which is somewhere this time. And we thought, hey, do we have a place where all these players can play together? Uh, and the answer was no. Um, and and that's why we started Gion. And one interesting thing is we we had this discussion in November. I found a name, still thinking that this is just an experiment. Uh, we found a name. We started finding people online, and to our surprise, we were on well found. To our surprise, we attracted the very top talent on well found at the time, for which we were also creative. We were listed top 10 consumer tech startup by well found for 25 because of that, because we attracted in their in their own words, 0.1 percentile of the talent on the platform worldwide. They were able to find them. They also offered money for investments. And from there, we realized that, hey, we have struck something which is really important. There's not just eagerness in building it, there is eagerness in financial sector where people are trying to put money in something like this. And also, once we started talking to creators and influencers and people, we realized that this is a necessary step. And then that's when, I've been all in January. We have been building the product. We have been building platform. We are right now in the middle of our first race. Hopefully, closing by the next month. So that's
Sure.
the
That's actually it's
journey.
actually like one of the challenges when you're doing a startup is one, finding the right talent to build it, and two, validation. Um, just because there's a lot going on, especially with AI. Products can be built in a day these days, a lot of them, not everything, but but validation is where like it takes some time. That's where you need real people, real usage, real feedback. So that's fantastic. Um, Maybe we can wrap this up with one last question. What's the biggest challenge that you or this Gion is facing right now that you are hoping to solve maybe in the next 3 to 6 months?
Oh, wow, that's a loaded question. Right there. There are multiple challenges. One of the challenges which we are trying to solve is we are trying to give this technology for as cheaper it costs as possible. And that is a challenge because um, we understand, even though we have, literally trillions of dollars get going into infrastructure and defense and tokens and whatnot, it's still a little far off than, making sure that you can, reliably deploy enough tokens to build something which is, you know, AI driven in a community and has the capacity to, bring in people and run in platform. We don't want to have something which, you can build with the likes of cloud code or level and then go out and find infrastructure to deploy at scale. We don't want to do that. We want all of it to be on our platform. And for that, we are partnering with different, of course, cloud and, insurance providers. And I don't want to name names. I mean, all of them, the bigger ones. So we are partnering with them. And I would say that is one of the biggest challenges is to find
Yeah.
enough tokens to do it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I do also think that like AI is probably one of the few technologies, or maybe the first one that is this transformative and that democratized so fast. But I also agree that there are big players that are able to um, eat the losses for some time before we actually get to know what the real cost of using these tokens and using this technology is. As you said, a lot of money going into these tools and technologies. But as a second party provider, it is still expensive for you to be able to build products that are mass deployable and still have the, you can call it tokens or CPU cycles or whatever you want to call it, like have that. I think is still a little bit of a challenge. I think as we evolve, I think that probably gets solved. So yeah, I think that's the wrap for us. Thank you so much once again for taking your time and joining this show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vamsi, for having me. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.